Hi. One of the topics that I hear a lot on of the lips of HR managers from the C-suite and also obviously the technical profession itself is why is technical such a hard role to recruit for at the moment? And it's that comment just reverberates. I get it from pretty much everybody I talk to, big names, FMCG companies and kind of smaller enterprises, challenger brands on their way up. So what is it about it? And it got me thinking about what's changed in the industry and how firms should respond if they want to be able to attract and retain technical talent. So, of course, the role itself is changing and quite dramatically. So, what we really need now are people that can bridge from, on the one hand, a sort of traditional food science or quality background. And then, secondly, they need to deploy really strong digital data and automation skills because the role is morphing into somewhat of a data science role, really, to be able to deal with continual changes we're seeing in advanced process controls, real time data interpretation, digital traceability, and automated lab equipment. It's really a complex role now. And also more broadly, that recruitment piece itself it's got many layers to it. It's not just a sort of classic skills gaps, that needs to be addressed. In reality, it's a mix of things: technical as a career, pay, training, regulation, hours, working conditions, as well as this complexity of the role that I think is at heart of what's going on here. So I think unfairly, many graduates and early stage professionals, they do see food manufacturing as low tech. It's repetitive, less exciting than other sectors like pharmaceuticals or fintech or tech itself. And they're wrong, in my humble opinion, but it's something that we need to address as an industry. Graduates often think of production lines or seasonal work when they think of the food industry, and they can't seem sometimes to see beyond that to the highly skilled technical career paths offered in technical management, food safety, quality, NPD, process engineering. And because of that, STEM graduates who might be ideal for technical management roles often default to pharmaceuticals or finance or kind of broader FMCG roles. Therefore, they've bypassed food manufacturing completely. And so that makes for a rather smaller talent pool entering the sector, and higher caliber graduates are harder to attract without heavy employer branding or very attractive financial packages. Technical manager roles in UK food and drink, in reality, often pay less than comparatively demanding roles in medical devices, broader consumer goods, or pharmaceuticals. And many technical managers also are expected to be on site full time, cover call outs, and take direct responsibility for consumer complaints, unannounced audits, crisis situations, and all of that very often without a financial premium that reflects that real stress. And food is, as we know, often a 24/7 production operation with night shifts, weekend production, and short lead times to launch given by retailers which means that technical leaders are often always on, as we say. And remote or hybrid flexibility is necessarily limited because food safety, quality, and technical sign off needs to be physically close to both the line and the lab. So it's perhaps unsurprising that talented people decide to move laterally into better paid or more flexible sectors. And it's a fact that retention becomes especially difficult once technical managers gain, say, 5 or 10 years experience and discover how much more they can earn in other sectors, albeit with less stress. So let's face it, technical is a very high responsibility, high risk career. Technical managers carry legal and commercial responsibility for, amongst other things, food safety and legality, compliance with UK, EU regulations, major UK retailer codes of practice, all of which are subtly different for the same basic foods, and of course, allergen risk, labelling accuracy, and traceability. It's quite a chunky load. And we all know that a single failure, such as a microbiological issue, a allergen incident, or mislabeling, can lead to product recalls and or damage to retailer relationships. Regulatory investigation could perhaps incur then, severe brand damage, and in the worst case, criminal liability. And changing regulations, so Things like HFSS, labeling changes, import-export requirements post-Brexit, and different standards across major retailers all have increased the sort of mental load on technical managers in recent years. The volume and complexity of retailer audits and third party certifications, SALSA, BRC, ISO, etc., has grown, as has the divergence between the UK and the EU regulations around import export. And that's increased the complexity of this compliance work. And if you take the time to speak to role holders like we do during projects, we hear that sometimes the role can feel, as one manager put it to me, high accountability, low authority. The dirty secret is that stress and burnout are common within technical. And this can push experienced people out of technical leadership and into auditing or roles with a much narrower scope of responsibility and hence less pressure. So many food and drink businesses have graduate schemes for operations and commercial, for instance, but fewer firms have a really robust multi-year technical development program that lead clearly to technical management roles step by step. And in smaller and mid-sized company, technical departments can be very lean. A technical manager plus a small QA team, for instance, with limited time, limited budget to really mentor and develop successors, which means there's a lack of role modeling and people with knowledge and experience in the firm to hold it down. The elders giving the experience and the situational leadership that younger talent can look to. And people in QA and technical roles often struggle to get broader operational or commercial exposure, even though modern technical managers must understand manufacturing processes and constraints on the one hand, SKU costings and margin pressures and retailer and brand strategy on the other. There's a lot to take in any given decision. And without that exposure to the broader business, it's far harder to develop a pipeline of rounded technical talent that's, and fewer kind of ready now candidates are hence available for technical manager roles, which means that vacancies depend on poaching from competitors rather than growing talent internally, which worsens, of course, the overall industry shortage. So if we think about geography, many food and drink manufacturing sites are located in rural or semi-rural areas, or indeed industrial estates outside the major cities. And there are very good reasons for the locations of sites. But at the same time, these areas are typically less attractive to young professionals with busy social lives. The sites often have limited public transport, making shift work harder and offering fewer dual careers opportunities for partners, couples, and families. Some regions already rely heavily on migrant labour for operational roles, but technical management demands a strong command of English, deep regulatory understanding, and often UK-specific experience. And there's an aging technical workforce, really, in some categories. So I would call out particularly traditional chilled foods or meat processing and dairy, where not enough younger professionals are coming through. And this all adds up to a fairly chronic local shortages where businesses are competing for the same small local talent pool. And this is accompanied by higher recruitment costs and longer vacancy periods, particularly for firms outside of the major cities and populations areas. So technical managers have skills that are highly transferable, including HACCP and risk assessment, quality management systems, regulatory affairs, compliance, supplier assurance, auditing, data analysis, complaints, and incident management. They really are the ninjas of this world. And these competencies are very marketable to industries outside of food and drink, adjacent industries such as pharmaceuticals, medical devices, cosmetics, personal care, general FMCG, and household products, as well as a broader sort of quality and compliance role in other industries, which typically offer higher pay, lower operational intensity, and more remote working and general role flexibility. So sadly, what's starting to happen is that the food and drink industry is becoming a training ground, a nursery where talent is then pulled into other sectors. And I'm starting to see that in pretty much every firm that we're touching at the moment. Our industry includes, alongside the very giant transnational companies, smaller companies, thousands of SMEs local producers, niche brands, and contract manufacturers who run very lean technical teams, hence offering limited career progression beyond one or two senior roles. And they struggle to match salaries or training budgets of major multinationals. And partly this is because kind of financial clout is heavily skewed towards the big retailers, which demand high technical standards and rapid responsiveness, and also push down prices, limiting suppliers' margins, and consequently the ability to invest in people and systems on the technical side. So even where work is interesting, such as innovative categories or artisanal products, career paths and rewards can be constrained, and technical managers end up sort of doing everything, including product specs, MPD planning, audit, customer visit management, overseeing incidents, etc. So that's a great mix for sort of building experience in those dimensions. But individuals can feel exhausted and pulled from pillar to post, and unsupported long term. And in some businesses, commercial and operational decisions are made first, and technical really sort of bought in to approve later. Now, whether it's stated as such or that's just how it works, it doesn't really matter because that would be how it would feel to the technical manager. And worse, technical teams may sometimes be seen as cost centers or the people who say no, rather than strategic partners in brand protection, innovation, and margin improvement. And where senior leadership does not deeply understand food safety and regulatory risk, they may tend to under-resource technical teams or push for aggressive timelines that could compromise robust validation or risk assessments, and fail to recognise or reward good preventative work precisely because nothing went wrong. And technical managers often leave, actually, in reality, if their workloads have increased substantially without proportional increases in team size or pay, or if their expertise is not, at the end of the day, fully respected. And as it's a very small community within technical, as it is within food, this word of mouth reputation of employers should really be guarded closely.